Yes. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Rapid Results with Andrew Weiss. We have an incredible guest today, Steve Hamoen. He is a motivator. He's an inspirational guy. He's here to help you crush it at life because he's overcome adversity himself. He wants to help you do the same. And in case you're wondering a little bit about who the Steve Hamoen guy is, he exhibits both business and sport, a strategic focus and unwavering determination. He faces challenges with the mindset of an athlete and coach, recognizing the meaningful advancement often entails massive sacrifices. He spanned industries from real estate to mortgages to consulting and software, and his journey underscores a steadfast training regimen and a fierce competitive spirit. He epitomizes the principles of showing up, standing firm, and relentlessly pursuing improvement. And with each challenge he encounters, his resolve strengthens and results amplify. His ultimate goal, to motivate others to face their challenges head on and harness their innate potential to chart their own path to success. Ever welcome Steve. Steve, tell us, what is the biggest and best business deal you're most proud of?
Well, it's funny, when you look at biggest and best, I look at best and best, because sometimes the biggest isn't necessarily the best. I had many times when I was running a construction business and you would book these, we built some large houses when I had a construction business. Some of them were 55,000 square feet of projects we were a part of.
Wow.
So these houses were like the size of schools. And some of them would be unbelievable people. I dealt with the nicest of nicest, billionaires, probably trillionaires now, but, just unbelievable human beings. And then you'd run into the opposite of that. And so when you have big, you need to be able to absorb big. And so what I always found is that I always love the idea of hitting, a bunch of small first base runs and winning the game by that rather than big swings. The same thing happens when I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of times it's not the big, it's not the big one move, but it's having the roadmap, to be able to do 100 moves and then just figuring out what's the best one that's going to be for you going forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I think people forget that sometimes single hits consistently makes life easier rather than trying to hit home runs and striking out all the time. What's an example of like one of those? What's an example of those single hits that you keep doing to be consistent for your growth and, improvement?
Well, in my mortgage business, for example, a lot of the mortgages we do are that $400,000 to $500,000 mortgage. And, you pop out a bunch of those. One doesn't really mean a lot of income to your business, but if you pop out 100, that's a meaningful impact to your business. And so, it's about setting up relationships with people for, a long-term goal to deal with them and then deal with the network of people that they deal with. And by doing that, you create a sustainability in your business. And that creates some predictability and some long-term growth. And it adds value because, again, in a business, if you had one hit wonder and just release that's gone now. So if you're looking at trying to sell your business later on and there's no, predictability and sustainability in your business, that one big thing isn't going to matter. It's what can we predict are going to happen in the future. And generally those are the one base hits.
No, I love that. That makes sense. And so tell us a little bit more about your background. No, we were talking before this was being recorded and live. Like you're like, yeah, I didn't come out of the womb knowing how to hit these baseballs.
I can't even play baseball, so
Funny how that works too.
That's why I called it a one base hit. I think it's called a first base hit. So
yeah. So tell us more. The motivation, inspiration behind this, and they overcame a lot of adversity. I like explaining it like the superhero story. Like here you are at the top of the mountain. You're like, you figured out how to do this. You figured out how to be consistent, help people overcome adversity. But tell us a little bit more about your superhero story.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. When, I first started in being self-employed back in 2005. Prior to that, I did sales and business consulting and coaching. I travel around the world teaching salespeople, an amazing methodology of sales, and we built KPIs and all this other stuff. So I really dialed into sales back at that point. But I wanted to try to do something physical in the sense of producing tangible results through direct action rather than through consultancy. And I'd started a construction business, specifically HVAC is what we focused on, and that was in 2005. Blew it up. We grew it up to I think it was like 20 staff at one point. It was a fair size in Canada. And we were doing, as I said, some of the largest houses in Canada. It went really well from 2005 to 2014. But 2014 was a tough year. That was a year where, we saw prices go up by, 200 to 300% for materials. There's labor issues. There was, people started to dry up and paying their bills on time, and paying them at all. And I walked away in that situation in a very deep financial hole. Just as I was having my second child and my wife's on mat leave, it was difficult. So I had to figure out, what can I do? And I had this amazing mentor in which she told, I wouldn't call her a mentor at that time. I'd call her a landlord at that time. You can find mentors in funny spots, I can tell you.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't know if she'd call herself a mentor, but she definitely was and still is. And so anyway, so she said, why don't you get into real estate? And I said, real estate? Real estate agents are slime balls. And she said, Steve, am I a slime ball? I'm a real estate agent. I said, well, no. And she said, well, then you don't have to be one either. I said, well, that makes total sense. Okay, I'll do this for a short period of time. Well, that short period of time turned into 10 years. My first year, I won Rookie of the Year for one of the franchises. Did 43 transactions, I think, in that year, is somewhere around there. So it was quite a bit for a real estate agent, and grew that. And then in the process of that, I realized the value of creating my mortgage brokerage. So I built up my business of the mortgage and carried on with that. And then I wanted more, because I really loved coaching. I was coaching real estate agents. I was coaching mortgage agents. And then I went full cycle right back to the very beginning and got back into the coaching, because, the thing is going from that deep of a hole. I was, near $750,000 in a hole in 2014, had a massive lawsuit against me. It was just not good times. And so to come out of that, with some profitable businesses, with things being, dealt with, and, with a bunch of properties under my belt, some systems. So I say systems for success are so extremely important, that you can have a business that can run without you. Like, it's just a beautiful thing.
No, and I love so many of those things that you touched on there. Like, well, first of all, I love how calmly you're able to say, yeah, I was $750,000 in debt. It just like, you pass right over that. And people are like, what? I've never come across that much money in several people's lives. So that's wild how you're able to hope.
But they have, though. That's the thing. Yeah. They actually have. That's actually a myth. And I'm going to challenge you on that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think most people will make $1 million. It's just, how long does it take them to do it?
That's true.
Because some people will make it at $50,000 a chunk every year, right? And some people will make it in 1 month.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all it is a form of to be able to retain that $1 million, is to create compression to try to make it in a faster time period.
No, that makes sense. And tell us more about your mindset to go after millions of dollars. And obviously, being $750,000 in debt is a good incentive to go after $1 million. But tell us more how you formed that mindset, because there's another coach, JV Crum, who says that success is 90% mindset, 10% skill. So what are your thoughts on all that?
I totally agree with that, because again, I started off playing rugby back in high school. I did wrestling, did football. I never was the biggest. I was, I went into grade 9 at like 89 pounds. So gosh. I was not a big fellow. I got in the football field. They laughed me almost off of it, until they realized the grit that I showed up to every practice. I would generally not miss a tackle, and I would listen, and I'd be coachable. And I think the idea of allowing yourself, first of all, to be coachable and be open to the idea that you cannot win the future with today's actions if you want them to be different. And so you've got to be able to have that ability to open your mindset to pivot. So that's the first thing I had to do, is say, okay, well, I got to open my mindset. I thought real estate agents are scumballs just because I dealt with some bad ones in the past. And she opened my eyes to like the amount of amazing people in that industry. I think, a lot of them get a bad rap, and there's some just unbelievable people as real estate agents. And so, especially given right now what's going on with this stuff with the NAR class action lawsuit, that's a whole different ballgame. But I think the winning the mindset is so critical, because if you don't have that in you to be able to say, when things are tough, I'm going to keep on going. When it doesn't look like there's a good answer, I'm going to keep on going. I'm not seeing results, I'm going to keep on going. That's what gets you to that next level of success. It's not the quick win, the fast money, because you don't have any repeatable skills in those situations. You just had dumb luck. I give a lot of people a lot of credit. There's people who made millions on, crypto or whatever they did. And it wasn't because they had skill in it. It's just the right place, right time. I give them all the credit in the world for that. That's fantastic. But you can't build a sustainable business on that.
So sounds like you've had this grit and this determination at such a young age from the very beginning. How do you help maintain that, or do you think it's genetic? Like, how do you help make sure that you're staying top of mind every day and you're not giving up, essentially?
It's so funny because I came from a very, my dad was an entrepreneur, but he'd always run into struggles and walls and that sort of thing. And I always thought, well, it's because I came from poverty that, I had this guiding light that I needed, that's the reason why I kept on pushing it, because I never wanted to go back to that. But in building some of these big houses, I met this one family, and the son was, he played tennis. He was like a world-class tennis player, started a business, built a huge business, just the most gracious, polite individual you could ever meet. But he came from massive wealth. And he had grit, he had determination, he had a no quit attitude. Like, that guy would roll with everything. So I don't think it had to do with that. You probably stumped me on that one, because I'm still trying to figure that out as to is it something that it's innate, or is it something that can be coached? Because after coaching thousands and thousands of people, some people will bite. And if you can find the thing that's most important, that's going to drive them. A lot of people talk about, like Simon Sinek talks about, finding somebody's big why.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can speak to the why, you can get the movement. But I think you can get people who speak to their why, but still won't do the movement. There's a barrier there. And so sometimes that barrier can be broken, but the only person who can break it is themselves.
Right? Oh, I love that. And I love you talk about too, the importance of motivation. I read a story, and I know while we're recording this, one of the, I don't know if you're a basketball fan, but one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time, Phil Knight, recently passed away. And I read this story on Twitter how apparently Phil Knight was leading, not Phil Knight, Bobby Knight. Phil Knight is a different guy. But anyway, so Bobby Knight, he came into leadership class, and he picked what he thought was like the weakest guy in the room. He's like, all right, come here and jump as high as you can. And he touched the wall. And then he put a $20 bill above that spot where he jumped. He's like, okay, now grab this $20 bill. And the guy grabbed it, no problem. And he's
well, it's amazing. There's a study that we've done on rats that I heard about. I don't know if you heard this study, where they put these rats in water, and they wanted to see how long they could swim. And I guess the rat could swim for maybe an hour or 2 hours, whatever the study said, right? And then what they did is they put another bunch of rats in, and then they pick, as soon as the rat would start to struggle, they would pick the rat up, hold it for like a minute or two, and then put it back in a second time. Well, the second time that they put the rat back in, the rat was able to swim, I think it was like a day. Like, it was some ridiculous amount.
Wow.
And the belief is that the rat, because it had the belief that some hand is going to come in at some point to give it reprieve, that it was just going to hold on, because it knew that it could get there eventually. So I think the people who win are the people who, and win is a mental construct. I mean, whatever it is, right? But the people who go for that win is because they do have the belief that it's possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the one thing, like, to me, because I had such exposure to so many successful people, and I knew that, they're just human. It's not like they're superhuman. I mean, there's people like Mike Tyson that are just built differently.
Yeah.
But you know what? When you go down and you look at his training with Customato and everything that he did, and how dedicated he was to his craft, I mean, was he superhuman, or was he just super dedicated? I love his saying when he says, "Was it do the things that you hate like the things that you love, like as if you're doing it like you love?" And I mean, that's just a beautiful way, because that's going to get you through it.
No, I love that. And I love this conversation, because it's just like, it makes you want to run through a wall. Like, nothing's going to stop you at this point. I'd love to shift a little bit more into now sales, and talking about sales here. Tell us, what do people get wrong when it comes to sales? Like, how are you able to be Rookie of the Year? How are you able to do so much better than all the other people? What are people missing out on?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I run into a lot of people, especially, I own a mortgage brokerage as well. And in my mortgage brokerage, you'll have a lot of people get in the industry, and they don't realize that it's not about doing the mortgage and taking the payroll and, looking at the pay stubs or whatever, but it's about finding the clients. And that's a big eye opener for them. And they're like, "Oh, I can't do sales." I'm like, "Well, you just sold me." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you just sold me on the fact that you can't sell." Right. So you can sell something when you're committed to it, and you're just committed to the fact that you can't sell. So what you need to do is you need to be committed to the fact that you can sell. That's straight out of Grant Cardone's Sell or Be Sold. And because every day you're either selling something or you're being sold on something. You know, when I go into the store and they're like, do you want the, you know, the brown rice or the you know, the French fries? I'm being sold those are the only two options. Right? When I could just say, hey guys, you know, can you just give me the soup? That's not on the menu. Why don't you just give it to me anyways? Okay. There, I just sold them on it.
I love that. And I think this is such a good point too, that, you know, it's unfortunate. I know people hear the word sales, they go, oh, sleazy car salesman, sleazy real estate agents, blah, blah, blah. But like learning sales is one of the top skills any humans can learn ever, because it can get that girl to go on a date with you. It can get you to pick the favorite place you want to go to with your friends. It can help make sure you get paid more money. When more money, you can do more things with.
The most committed salespeople are like 2 or 3 year old children. Because they don't quit, right? Like when it comes to like the objections they get, no, it's time to go to bed. You know, no, you know, you can't play with that toy. No, you can't do this. They're committed, right? They're going to keep on going, and they're going to keep on going at you, and they're not going to give up.
Yeah.
And so they really are, like, most people are natural salespeople at birth. And then through the way the world speaks to them, they start absorbing the negativity of the world. Like, don't get it, you know, don't get too much attention, or money can't buy you happiness, or be happy with what you have, or don't be too pushy. You know, all of these things that, you know, people talk about and they teach their kids is actually sort of creating a gap between where they were as amazing 3 year old salespeople to later on in life, where they're, you know, a little bit aloof in the way that they approach people. They don't go after their goals. They start being, you know, backpedaling when they need to be going forward.
Well, and that reminds me too, I think I saw a study that like by the time a kid turns 5 years old, he'll have heard no like 10,000 times or something like that. And so of course it just gets grilled into our brains that we're just used to know all the time. Like, what's the point? You know, like the rat example, like, I guess the hand's not going to pick us up kind of thing. But like what you said too, like the people who win, though, if you really want to stand out, you'll be persistent, you'll keep going, you'll hopefully bring out that 2 year old, 3 year old self that's like, no, I want to get what I want at all costs kind of thing. And so I love the way you're talking about this.
But I also love it, like, when I look at it from the perspective of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is that, you know, when you're in combat, in a competitive situation, whether it's an altercation in the street, which I hope nobody gets into, or it's, you know, I love tournament jiu-jitsu because, you know, they're just really good, hard competition. And when you're in that situation, you know, people, they especially white belts, they'll go in and they're going to go to a tournament and they've got a plan. And then as soon as they get on the mat, they do exactly the opposite of what they said they're going to do. And they come out and they lose, and they're a little bit frustrated. And you said, okay, well, what was the plan when we went in? Well, first of all, if they didn't have a plan, there's your first problem.
Yeah.
But the second thing is, if they come out and they, well, we didn't follow the plan. Well, that's the issue, right? So I think when it comes to sales too, I think one of the things that you really need to do is, number one, focus on having a plan, and then get that plan battle ready. In the sense that if you don't practice it, people in situation of duress move to their lowest form of training. And reading a book once is not training.
Yeah.
You know, when we're training, you know, when I'm a basketball player, using the basketball analogy, if I shot 1 3-pointer, I said, I'm good. You know, I don't need to practice that one again. I did it once. You know, I don't think that's going to work well with any coach or in any environment, because your skill is not going to be where it needs to be, because that's the one-hit wonder. You know, but the fact that you can now hit it religiously 1,000 out of 1,000 times, you can hit maybe, I don't know what the averages are, but 300 out of 1,000. I don't know if that's supposed to be a good number for basketball, because I'm really short. But, you know, I mean, there's going to be a certain percentage that's going to be considered as a good percentage.
Yeah.
So it's the volume in which you practice it. And most people, when they're practicing, they think sales is this innate skill, which it's not. It's something that is completely and utterly a learned practice.
I love that. I think people forget about that too. It's just that, sales is a skill, just like public speaking, just like learning how to talk to people properly in general, just like learning how to stay in shape. I think, so that's a good reminder of that too, that sales is a skill. And tell us, for the clients you help with sales, tell us like one of your favorite client stories of like how you've helped them, what you helped them achieve, how you went about it. Love to hear about that.
You know, there was one that I just did recently, and it was pretty amazing, because she had a specific mindset around what she needed help with, which was, either closing or like scripting or all of these issues. And what it turned out was it was just mindset, and when I say just, I probably shouldn't say just, it was mindset.
Yeah.
Because I think that right there is one of the most important things. And what it was is that she's fairly young, and her challenge was, she wasn't getting people to bite. And I said, well, who are you focusing on? And she said, well, I was focused on this specific segment of, newer people in the market and newer families. And I said, why don't you go after the people who maybe more tenure and have more disposable income? She said, well, I can't, because they generally will shut me down because I'm new. And I said, okay, well, we're going to fix that, because they're not shutting you down. You are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And because your limiting belief is what's stopping them from working with you. So we have to overcome that first. So if we can beat that right there, everything else is going to happen, in its due course. But we got to hit that first, because people will buy from you in the way that you buy from other people. If you say no, I don't like to work with young people, they just don't know much. Well, guess what? If you're young, there's your limiting belief. Yeah. You say, if you start haggling on the price, well, guess what you're going to expect the people are going to do, and you're going to accept it as tolerant for people to haggle on your price.
Interesting.
So the way that you buy is the way that people are going to buy from you.
The way you buy is the way people buy from you. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So if we just start investing $1,000, $10,000, $100,000 into things, then people will start investing that much into us. Is it that easy?
Yeah, well, it means that you're going to attract people that you're going to put out into the world, and you're going to attract what you're putting out, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going out there and you're thinking with a scarcity mindset that I've got to, cover every dollar, and I've got to be, in the mindset of shrinkage and protection, then when you talk to people, you're going to accept that from them.
Yeah.
Right. But if you speak with abundance, that look, I'm looking in growth and I'm looking in opportunity, then as people talk to you, you're not going to accept scarcity, because it doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah. And
that they shouldn't be thinking that way, and you will not accept it.
I love that. Not accepting scarcity. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of that too, I'm excited to ask this next question as well. I know you talked about how you've obviously figured out how to get into the 7-figure mark. Obviously you love help people get to the 7-figure mark. If someone was starting from scratch, how would you help them get to the 7-figure mark, and how much time do you think you'd need if they listened to everything you said, followed all your advice, had the right mindset? Tell us about that journey. You'd help them.
Well, I mean, the easiest way to do it is math, right? Mm-hmm. So start with math. So you can make $1 million if you sold $1 million thing once. It cost $1 million, and you sold it. There's your $1 million.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Mm-hmm. And if that's your business, yeah, you could do that in one transaction. If you're lucky, that could be in the first day. I mean, heck, that'd be awesome. Right. Yeah. But that hope is not a strategy. That was a book written as a sales book written a while ago. It was a good one. And so you're not going to go on that. And maybe you're not selling $1 million thing. So then you got to say, okay, well, what is the value of what I'm selling? So if it's $100,000 thing, well, you got to sell 10 things. Mm-hmm. Well, how much energy is required to sell one of those 10 things? Yeah. So how many people do you need to get interested? You need to know your math. And once you figure out the math, that makes is so predictable to get what you need, to know what you need to do to get to the goal line. Yeah. Right. And are you prepared to do that? So the thing is that you could make $1 million in a year, no problem. Right. But you got to be committed. See, the thing is a lot of people will set these goals, and most people say $1 million is the lofty goal. I think that very soon that's going to be considered just the old $100,000 job is $1 million. Yeah. Right. We're going to see that transition happen in our lifetime. And so, but the thing is you could set that goal, which could be considered as unreasonable, but are you going to be obsessed enough in your business? Are you going to make the sacrifices required? And are you going to do the work? Are you going to be unreasonable in the actions that you're going to take to hit that goal? And that's where most people fail, is that they're not willing to be unreasonable. They're going to look and say, well, it's 5:00. I got to go watch the Simpsons or something, like whatever they like to do. And so therefore they're going to be reasonable with their time, and they're going to listen to all those people out there telling them, you work too much, you're you're too obsessed. And well, do you think, like we talk about any of those basketball players like Kobe, did he get to where he is by, not being obsessed? No, he was hyper focused and hyper obsessed on everything that he does. I mean, I saw him answer a question of, do you play to win or do you play to not lose? And he's like, I play to learn. Like I don't play for either of those. Both of those have pitfalls. And the fact that he's thinking about that shows you that he's coaching his mindset to win. And so he's working on his shot. He's working on his mindset. He's working on everything.
I love that. I love how it that applies to all of life too. Like you can't play to win or lose. You just got to keep playing to win, essentially.
Yeah.
Because I know I forget which books I read, but like there's a thing that like when we start getting wins, we think we're invincible, and then that's when I think it was in the book Sapiens or something, or no, it was I think it was called the Third Door. Basically talking about how like a prey, like after once they survive like a big battle, they'll go out into the open and think they're okay, and then they'll get eaten by a lion like super fast. Just like how often do we do that? Like we think just because we got like a win per se, we can like anything goes now. Then of course you're more susceptible to.
Well, and that's interesting because one of my favorite sports is MMA, and I mean boxing will follow the same thing as well. But any of those prize fight environments, because they'll win one fight or they win, win, they get up, they win the title, and then they lose at the next thing.
Yeah.
Or they keep it for 2 fights and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And it might be just because it's a hyper competitive division. I mean, that's certainly the case in a lot of the divisions, but sometimes it's because their mindset shifts. Like who they were before they got the title is very different than who they were after. And I was very fortunate in life when we were building those, being part of those builds for, those massive houses. You'd be dealing with billionaires at the time. And this was like 2005, 2007, that you're talking to billionaires. Like that's an impressive number back then.
Yeah.
Still is today. But the thing is their mindset was of grit and drive and determination.
Yeah.
And sometimes incredible humility. I was with one of these large, land-owning families, and they owned like part of Canary Wharf, lots of Toronto, lots of New York City, and one of them sat me. I was down cutting concrete in their basement at the time. Brought me up and she said, "Why don't you just come and have tea?" And she brought me up into her living room. I sat down. I tried to dust myself off as best as possible, and sat and talked with her for 45 minutes.
Wow.
And she was more inquisitive about me, just having a conversation. And I look at that and I'm like, so you can be a genuine person as a billionaire. You can still have grit and determination as a billionaire. But what you also have is a lot of opportunity. So then the question is, why don't you want to get there? The big question I have, with a lot of people who get, stuck and because they're not even willing to try. And I think that's the thing that when I see people like that, they give me so much inspiration. So when you ask like what pushed me through, it's people like them.
Well, and I love this example too, because what I've learned is unfortunate, like at least it feels like in America for the most part, like there's a lot of guilt and a lot of repression when it comes to making lots of money and being rich. Like, oh, rich people, they got there by stepping on others, or once you're rich, it's going to turn you into a terrible person. Or if you're rich, that means you're privileged, but other people are suffering kind of thing. So how do you help people be okay with making lots of money and being rich?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I think, again, it goes back to money. They have to understand, they have to change their mindset of what money is. Right. And to me, money is a tool, just like a gun is a tool. Yeah. Right? You could use a gun to shoot a deer, to have some really good venison at night if you're a meat eater, and I certainly am. And, or you could use it in a civil war. If you want to uprise over a dictator or whatever. So there's a lot of different things that you can use it for, or you can use it for really bad things. So the tool itself, the gun, is not the problem. It's what you use it for.
Yeah.
So if you look at it and you say money is a tool, and that tool it's really an amplification of who you are. So if you're a bad person and you get lots of money, you're just going to be potentially a worse person. If you are an amazing person, that money, as long as you don't change your mindset, and I'll talk about that in a second, but that will be an amplifier of being an amazing person. So you could go out and build a school where a school needs to build. You can volunteer your time a lot more, and give back with your time because your money's doing all the work. You can invest into charities, you can invest into anything that you can. But if you get to that level of wealth and then you change the mindset that you had to get there, which was abundance, and then you pivot to scarcity, then you're now at wealth with scarcity mindset. And that's a very dangerous spot to be too.
No, I love that. And so I know we're talking a lot about abundance and just like overcoming scarcity and stuff like that. What about imposter syndrome? How do you help battle imposter syndrome? That once you come across the success and wealth and be able to do that, how do you battle that?
Well, I think imposter syndrome is if you're doing something that you don't believe you should be doing, you probably are an imposter.
No.
I think there's certain things that, I have people who come into the gym all the time and, they'll be young and strapping young lads and they just want to show you who's boss. And they don't realize they're an imposter when they come in. And then you can, make them into this malleable piece of dough. and
jiu-jitsu and MMA and all that.
In jiu-jitsu, MMA, whichever, right?
Yeah.
And then they realize they need to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imposter syndrome, again, when it's used in a way of bravado where you're not backing it up with something, that's one thing. The imposter syndrome of the other, which is you actually have the skills, you actually have the ability, it hasn't been recognized within you. The fact that everybody's not a millionaire right now, they're imposters, right? Not in the negative way, but in the way of they just haven't realized it yet. Right? So they're the imposter of the not there yet. They're not the imposter of the no, I'm actually, because those ones who come in, some people come into the gym, they'll come in, they think they're a beast, they realize they're not a beast and they leave.
Yeah.
But some of them come in the gym and they think they're a beast, they get humbled, and now they want to learn more. Those are the best ones, right? And then I'll give one other category with an asterisk. The ones who come in and they're nervous, they don't think they should be there. We had this one guy who came in and he was, it's like they're like little doughboys, it's just, they're very passive. They're very, but they have this reason they're there and you don't know why they're there. Like, why are you even here?
Yeah.
And then build up to be these amazing people and they build up to be these amazing skills. But at the beginning, they're like, I don't think I should be here. No, you definitely should be here.
No, right? It makes a lot of sense. So if you think everyone who's not a millionaire, they're an imposter because everyone deserves to be millionaires. Is that your statement?
I think every person out there, in my opinion, has the ability to get there. In North America. Yeah. If you're in one of those mines that I saw in, in Africa where, you're digging for cobalt or whatever it is, like they might have a heavier uphill decline. Like Francis Ngannou, for example. Yeah. I mean, his journey, if you follow his track, man, like if that guy can get to the highest level of boxing and in my opinion, win against the best, best out there, who I love, by the way, Tyson Fury, he's just an amazing individual.
Yeah.
But for Francis Ngannou to get to that level from where he started, tell me your journey's harder than that.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, there's another good book called Grit, and obviously that's one of my favorite ones by Angela Duckworth. And but there's another book that's not by Angela Duckworth, but it's talking about this guy who literally had to fight every day just for a loaf of bread to bring back to his family. And then he got super lucky that he's working on a construction site, and then the American owned the construction site, flew him to Iran, literally arrived in the U.S. with like $0, not knowing how to speak English, and had to wrestle this random dude to get a scholarship to UCLA, and then from there, became an empire builder.
That's amazing.
So that's what I've learned too. That kind of helps with mindset as well. Is just no matter where you are, there's a good chance people have come from harder situations and overcome more essentially. But also,
Will Smith is like, you will never outwork me.
Yeah, I love that.
You will never outwork me, and I feel the same way. I mean, I'm 48 years old. And I will train 20 hours a week of jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And I have no problem with that. You will never outwork me. That's my belief.
Yeah, no, it's like the analogy that Will Smith uses, that we're all running on the treadmill. He's like, "You're not beating me. I'm not getting off this treadmill. Like, I'd rather die than get off this treadmill." And so,
Absolutely.
granted, the quote was before all the Jada's drama, but
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
regardless,
You can't beat me, but a slap
yeah, exactly.
will get me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about mentors and who you surround yourself with, because I definitely believe in Jim Rohn when he says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like you said too, your mentor encouraged you to get into real estate. Obviously, you have her to thank for all that. How can people be more mindful about creating great mentors in their life and surrounding themselves with other awesome people?
Yeah, and I think you have to be intentional about the people you surround yourself with. I think a lot of people, I know when we were kids, you're just acclimatized to the fact that who's the kids on the block? Okay, those are my friends.
Yeah.
And so proximity, bred friendship. And I think, with the world being so easy to access, the ability for you and I, who've never met in person, to be able to, sit and have this discussion means that the ability to be able to amplify the people you're dealing with is so easy to do in today's space, but you just have to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
There was a guy, I forget his first name, but there's something called the Dunbar 150, which is a concept of, it's a way to set boundaries of who's your core five and who's the people around that. And that's set almost like a service level agreement for each of those levels of friendships, both what you are going to provide and then what they're going to provide in return. It's a bilateral friendship. I think the only time in which you have that sort of unconditional love or unconditional friendship happens sometimes with family. And I think sometimes, I can speak to experience, there's even conditions in those space.
No, I love that. Just like recognizing you don't have to pick friendships by proximity anymore. And then just like with Dunbar's rule, like your top 150 people in your circle like are so crucial for sure.
Yep.
Let's talk about now the automations you like to use for your business, how you help people. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I've always been a technology nut. Even when I first started back in my construction business, I tried to find automations that would make things better, whether it be from a CRM space or from, I think I bought the first digital air conditioner tester kit. I can't even, it's been so long ago. It was pretty cool. I could calculate, superheat and subcooling just electronically rather than look at charts. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, I've always been, if you could make something more effective and more efficient, you get the double whammy of success on that one. But I do put that with a caveat, and the caveat is, it's an old, I think it's a Bostonian phase, which is don't pave a cow path, which means that you have to recognize, is what you're automating and the way that you're automating gaining you levels of efficiency and effectiveness, or is it just allowing you to move faster in a very inefficient way? And so that's one of the things whenever you're evaluating a system, is it going to do that? And there's always time for that. When we look at, say you're growing a business from $0 to $100,000, a lot of people would go, what CRM systems do I need? What this do I need? No, you don't need any of that. You just need clients.
Yeah.
Right. So just get clients first. And your first 100K in your business, it's going to be grit. It's going to be bootstrapping. It's going to be a lot of things to get you there to that level of success.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start spending on some of those systems, because if it's free, there's always a price to free.
Yeah.
And, if you start spending money, that can be very difficult at that time frame, unless you're well-funded. That's a whole different ballgame. But when you look at automation now, we look at AI. AI is just so taking over in everything. I think we're like nearing the anniversary of ChatGPT. It's somewhere around this time frame, I think is what it was.
Oh, really? Just like the 1 year or 2 year anniversary?
It feels like 10.
I know, seriously.
And it feels like 10 years ago that ChatGPT and this whole automation push happened. But I look at my year from back then to what I do now, whether it's in creating content, whether it's in, trying to figure out, how can I be more efficient in integration of communication channels. AI is just becoming dominant. Right in this interview right now, I'm using AI.
Yeah.
And a lot of people watching would say, well, how are you reading off of a script? And it's like, well, I could be reading off a script, but you wouldn't know that because my eyes are actually AI eyes in this presentation. So I could take my finger and I can peel my eyes off, in this thing. But what it does, it allows me to have intentional connection, as well as, being able to look at you, Andrew, on the screen and, and really connect, in our conversation.
No, I love that. So tell us, outside of your eyes, what are some of your other favorite automations and AI tools you like to use for your own business, or when you help clients with, essentially?
Yeah, so a big one that I love is CRM. Like CRM, I think is, in CRM, the integration of AI and CRM is so prolific. I mean, my brother's building a thing for HubSpot. It's called Data Parrot, and it'll go into all of your systems and pull out your forecast using AI and say, are you actually going to hit it or not?
Yeah.
Based on your activities, based on your data set. So looking at things like that, I think are really important, especially when you're bigger. When you're smaller, it's how to bootstrap effectively. And ChatGPT is all day, every day being used. So, so I can take my notes and I can put my notes and I can say, summarize my notes in ChatGPT. How can I make this sound better in ChatGPT? I think AI plus RI gives you the best answer, which is, artificial intelligence plus real intelligence gives you the best answer. Because AI will lie to you. AI to me is a really dedicated employee, but that employee can be wrong too, and just make sure you challenge it.
No, I love that. It's just like, I know people sometimes get overwhelmed with like AI is taking over, I can't handle it, but it's just like, yeah, it does require, I like that RI, real intelligence, in order to help complement the artificial intelligence. Did you coin that, the RI?
Yeah, I guess so. I just made it up one day. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few questions left here. I know we talked about what it takes to be successful. Make sure you have grit, make sure you keep going, make sure you're providing value, calculate the math of how you want to be successful. Tell us more. What are some more? Are there any other non-negotiable actions as an entrepreneur to scale?
Well, you have to know your runway for success. I mean, a lot of people will have these grandiose ideas, but they don't know what the runway looks like.
Yeah.
And they'll have a jet that's just starting to take off, but it's at a regional airport.
Yeah.
So it's going to crash, right? And so you have to know, can I start off with a little Cessna and then in the air jump over to that jumbo?
Yeah.
So that's, I think, one of the things that people need to understand. And then when they're building their offers and that sort of thing, they have to understand, is it an offer that's going to be adopted at a rate that's going to allow me to grow effectively, both in the offer size and in what the market's really looking for. I mean, I've seen people come up with these really unique, interesting offers, but the market that they're going after doesn't have any money. And so I call that, like, that's sort of like a charitable offer, because it's an offer that you're going to give a lot of value, but you can't get anything in return.
Yeah.
Now, if what you're getting in return is data, so say, for example, you're just getting clients' names, that's allowing then you to go deeper into selling another level. Like, I was watching this one person. I love Russell Brunson, ClickFunnels, and I was watching this person build up their funnel. It was probably like a 7 or 8 layer funnel of free, and then small ask, free, small ask, free, and then offer, but it's something like that.
Wow.
But it allowed him to build just this absolute beautiful platform that if you dumped $1 million in the front end, you're going to get 10 out at the end. And it's because it's all repeatable. But you have to know that you can put that money in. So that's what it all comes back down to runway. Look at somebody like Google. I mean, how long did they run on a burn rate for?
Yeah, and even Amazon too.
That's right. Yeah. But if you're going to run your small business like that, I was talking with one lady who had a business that really relied on shipping, and she could not figure out the way to make the shipping make money. And then after talking to a bunch of different shipping companies, they all said, no, we do not make any money on this. This is our loss leader. We make money on everything else. This is an expense of client acquisition.
Yeah, and so
that was a big change.
I noticed the book behind you, 100 Million Leads, and I got that book as well. And just I love that's what he keeps talking about too, just like how important it is to lead with value and free and loss leaders, and of course everyone knows the legendary story of Costco, how like the guy literally said he would fight the CEO if he tried to raise the price of the $1.50 hot dog. It's just
absolutely.
Like
he knows his draw, right? I mean, we all go there for the ice cream and the hot dog and the free samples, right?
Yes,
and then we walk away with like $1,000 worth of groceries that we didn't need.
Yeah, I know. So loss leaders are a thing. So obviously,
Well,
yeah.
Alex does a great job, because I think recently he just talked about how, a lot of people focus, and this again goes to runway, but a lot of people will focus on the short money, which is the small money.
Yeah.
And then that makes them lose the big money in the end, right? Because they don't actually get to that big money because they kept on thinking small.
Tell us more about that. What do you mean?
Yeah, the quote, I'm going to butcher it, but it was something along the lines of, the idea of focusing on, many people focus on the small wins, the quick wins, and that disadvantages them for the big wins in the end. Because their business then is just built to be small. Grant talks about that a lot of times, big time. Grant Cardone talks about in his 10X rule book, right? Is that the ability to be able to 10X your goals, is something that allows you to think so much bigger. And then you're going to reconstruct your business in your mind to what the path it needs to take to get to that goal. Whereas if you just thought of the small goal and you said, well, that's just enough, that's where you're going to end up.
And so what's a quick example of that? I mean, I guess so being a sales coach, if you're like, oh, if I just tried to focus on selling my $15 book all the time, I would miss out on selling my, 4-figure offer or 5-figure offer.
Yeah, if I just gave my book away for free rather than selling my $15 book, I just gave my book away for free, or the cost of shipping or whatever, get it in the hands of people who go, man, this content's actually really good. Because I wasn't willing to pay for it, but now that I have it and I started digesting it, yeah, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a free webinar coming up. Cool. I'm going to join that free webinar. And then that free webinar leads you to that, $97, live event. The webinar was maybe evergreen. Yeah. And then you go to that $97 live event that maybe is an hour. Then they bring you under that $500 thing.
Yeah.
And then that $500 thing brings you to a $10,000 thing. And that $10,000 thing brings you to a $30,000 thing.
Yeah.
And so if they didn't give away those free, that's Grant Cardone, by the way.
Yeah.
Like that right there is Grant's value ladder. And it works exceptionally well, because what you realize is each level, the currency that you're trading in, right? And that trust allows you, when you transfer that to the fiat currency, you're going to release more of that fiat currency based on the trust levels.
Oh, it makes sense. I love that. All right. Well, I know we only have a few minutes left here. So tell us, obviously, you know how to help clients, you know how to help serve them, make them get out of their scarcity mindset, help them scale, help them sell people on things. For those listening on this call or this podcast episode, what do you want to offer to our Rapid Results audience?
Well, for us, I mean, I'll put in one of our events that are coming up. There'll be stevehamoen.com/events. There'll be a link with a promo code, saying Rapid Results, and that'll just give you free access. So when you come to an event, free access, courtesy of Andrew. So we really, appreciate your listening here. I mean, your show is great. Bring a lot of people on to bring a lot of value out there, and truly appreciate that. And then if you want to speak with me directly, just stevehamoen.com/book. And that'll just get you right to my calendar, and you can book a time. I'll spend a half an hour, 45 minutes with you to kind of go through your business. And if I can provide value in that time, that's fantastic. And if you want to move forward, great. If you want to come to our events afterwards, perfect. My mission is just to help people, solve the riddle of what they're trying to achieve and grow and push through, because I know what it's like to be stuck, and I know what it's like to break free. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is. No, I love that. And yeah, so last couple questions are, how can we best contact you? Any other ways outside of stevehamoen.com, or is that the best way?
Yeah, you can go to my Instagram, Steve Hamoen, the Instagram. You can go to my YouTube channel, Steve Hamoen, and that's Hamoen, like the faucet Moen. And just any of those. So just you Google my name and you'll find me everywhere.
All right, perfect. And the last question is, what's the one takeaway you want people to have from this interview today?
I think that we're going to be going into these next years. It's going to be really tough times. There's no question about it. We went through the last few years of shortfalls in inventory, shortfalls in labor, all these other problems that were outside of the growth perspective. Growth seemed easy at those points because the money tree was full and the leaves were falling into your pockets. You didn't have to collect them. Now we're going into a position of hard work is going to be required to succeed. You're going to have to have a plan to succeed. And so the one thing that I want to say is, going to these next years, if you are going to operate in the position of that you need to grow, or you need to get unstuck from where you're, and if you're anywhere making under 100 grand a year, you definitely need to get unstuck, because the cost of living is not going to go back down.
Yeah.
And so you need to get unstuck to get out of that trap of the middle class. And so if there's anything I can do and say is, number one, I believe, go out and read as much as you can. I love Alec Hormozzi's book. I love Grant Cardone's Sell or Be Sold book, or the 10X Rule book. Those are three that I would say instantly get out there and get reading, and start getting your mindset straight that you can achieve what you need to achieve, because you need to do it. Success, Grant says, success is your duty, your responsibility, and your obligation. So go get success.
I love that. Yes, I'm fired up now. Thank you, Steve. Well, this has been awesome hosting you on the show. Thank you for so many golden nuggets. I have like a whole page of notes myself, and I'm excited for everyone listening back to this to reach out to Steve. Definitely book some time with him. As you can tell, he's passionate, he's helpful, he's kind, and I think he knows what he's talking about as well. So definitely check him out. Enjoy this conversation, and we'll see you all next week on our next episode of Rapid Results. So thank you, everyone.